All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL video. Going to be breaking down my favorite sleepers for this upcoming NFL draft. Let's go ahead and get into it. And let's start off with one of my favorite ones, Isaiah Bond out of Texas. I just really love his size, speed, and just his route running ability. And if we just take a quick peek at his player snapshot for the draft, I do think we have some pretty good player comps for him. Tyler Lockett and Hollywood Brown are both pretty good player comps, similar players where, not the most physical type of receivers, although he can play a little bit more physical as well. You could give out Tyreek Hill as an example, but I think just given the 40 that he had, we'll touch on that in a second, might limit him a little bit. I do think he is going to be someone that, projects around the late third round. Maybe a team likes him a little bit more than that. Some pretty good potential landing spots for him are going to be the Chargers. Miami, Arizona is kind of just fitting that similar type of scheme. Maybe a team that wants to get a quick twitch type of receiver and a receiver that can get open downfield. If you look at kind of the projections that I have for him, he's obviously going to be someone that's going to be more of a deep threat. And I would say, around 500 to 700 yards as a receiver number 3, one of those big play receivers. Heck, you could even think Alec Pierce in a sense as well. I could see him, potentially getting involved in an offense like that as well. Now, I did mention his 40 time. Okay, and I think that is worth calling out. To me, it just looked like someone that just ran a bad 40, just maybe someone that not having as good of training heading into a 40 time. A lot of players will spend a lot of time prepping for the combine. I just kind of read into that because when you watch him on film, he does seem much faster on the field as opposed to Matthew Golden, ran a much faster 40 time. And I would think when you pair up those two together on film, Isaiah Bond does look like much more of a faster receiver as well. So we can kind of just take that 40 time with a grain of salt. Now, that being said, his 40 time wasn't even that bad. It was still the 5th best 40 time out of all the receivers this year. And if we look at all the metrics that we have coming in for him, they all pretty much pop for him as well. Top 5 or better in all the categories that we're looking at. 3rd best in bench press, which obviously bodes really well for him. In terms of his strengths, I would say it's his speed and explosiveness to create those big plays. Really like that there. I do think he has some pretty good route running ability and can really snap off routes really well. Now, this is a route that I actually really like. Just snaps it off very well there and then just gets upfield. You see the yards after catch. Not a big play from him, but we just see him just consistently making good plays. And the overall consensus, I would say, he's just a comfortable player. He almost makes playing the receiver position look easy. Now, those are his strengths. We'll go ahead and get into his weaknesses. The weaknesses are going to be really his size. Okay, guys, only coming in at 180. He is a smaller receiver, and on top of that, he does have small hands as well. The small things there. Another, I would say, pretty big issue is that he never had a big season. Now, you could argue that's due to where he played. He wasn't actually needed to really have a big season. Playing for Alabama and then going to Texas. I think that speaks volumes to maybe Quinn Ewers as his quarterback as well. Other things that you notice with him, does have a small catch radius and, not very good at contested catches as well. So he is more of a downfield threat, but he's someone that's you're throwing open as well. So a little bit of weaknesses. I can see why he's going late, but he is one of my favorite sleepers for this draft. And I think anyone that is getting this receiver for their team, it should be excited for them. He should be a receiver number 3, potentially instantly, obviously, depending on where he goes. And so let's go ahead and get into another receiver sleeper that I really like. This is going to be a late round pick. And this player's name is Isaac TeSlaa. And he is an interesting player. So he transferred up from D2 after having a breakout year in D2. And he's just a player that really just does everything well. And just kind of your prototypical kind of late round flyer that you would want as a player. The issue is that nothing really popped stats wise. He just does a lot of things right. And so he's a player that I think teams could develop into kind of a stellar player really for them. It might take 2-3 years, but I do think he's a little bit of a late round project in the sense that they just need to fine tune a few things for him. And so just kind of get into the draft snapshot that I made for him. I will say, being a Packers fan, he does remind me a decent amount of Jordy Nelson. If you just kind of look at his metrics, height, weight, speed, it all kind of aligns there. And just watching him play, he does seem like someone that could be more of a timing route type of receiver, where if you get that chemistry down, that is where I think he could really excel. You look at some of the ways that Arkansas was using him more as an inside receiver. I just don't see that really fitting his game. Another player comp that I had was Matt Collins. I think that's actually a much more favorable comp for Matt Collins. a player that does a lot of things right, blocks really well, and if you can at least be Matt Collins, you can at least be a starter on a team for a long time. He is most likely going to be someone that is a day 3 pick. I would say the upside for him is just likely to be not 1,000 yards receiver, although I do think, again, if he polishes off some of those weaknesses that he has, that maybe he could shoot for a little bit more. The athletic ability is there. And really what I was looking at for like potential landing spots are going to be teams that do value players that kind of do everything for you. So the blocking is going to be a key aspect of that. And then also those teams that are kind of setting up a lot of timing routes. So for Green Bay, a little bit of a poor, a lazy take is saying that he could be Jordan Nelson. But think about Romeo Doubs. I think that's kind of a similar player, could be used like that. The Rams obviously like those types of receivers. Think Jordan Wainham. Think obviously Puka Nacua. He's not Puka Nacua, but you guys get the point. And then San Francisco, also a team that does that as well. And so when you look at his strengths, it is really easy to find why he's such an appealing player on paper. And he also is someone that did have a good Senior Bowl as well. So if you look at his raw athletic score, that's what the RAS stands for. He had one of the best raw athletic scores out of any player. Okay, guys, he ranks actually in the top 92 percentile all time in that, dating back to 1985. Very good there. He is someone that can be a 3-down receiver, and he does have good hands, didn't drop passes, was very good in contested catches as well. And so if you can get the ball into his vicinity, he is someone that does excel. And that's where I kind of get to him more as like a timing type of receiver. Now, I will say, guys, the stats around him over the last 2 years in the SEC, when kind of transferring up from D2, are a little bit concerning. Okay, 2 years ago, only had 351 yards and started every single game. Only had 2 touchdowns and 34 receptions. In 2024, he actually did not start, but had 545 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. So he had one really good year in college football, and that was D2 his sophomore year, where he had 68 catches, over 1,000 receiving yards, and 13 touchdowns. And so it is kind of interesting that he did not break out in year 2 there at Arkansas. Just really the lack of stats is a worry. And you could point to a few things there. It's his ability not to get off the line. And I would say there were some routes where you watch him and he does tend to drift on his routes a little bit too much. That those two things are going to limit you from playing if you can't correct those. Now, I do think that those are two things that can get corrected, but if they don't, he's just not going to get on the field. So here's a play that I do think is a good example of what I mean with maybe, him drifting a little bit on his routes and really just something that can get corrected. So this is one where right here, guys, he does drift on his route just slightly, okay, to the outside a little bit too much. If he just snaps this inside and doesn't drift that way, it's an even easier touchdown that he ends up with here. So he does score the touchdown, but because he drifted a little bit on that route, he did allow the defender to get into the play a little bit. Like, this should be just an easy pitch and catch touchdown, but again, because he drifts a little bit too much, and I'm not saying I know the route, but you're open at this point. Like, you just do. Snap that route off, get down the line, and that's just an easy pitch and catch touchdown. So again, I don't know the coaching that's going on there. No one does, but that is just something that I do think can get corrected once he gets into the NFL. And so if he does fall in a team like the LA Rams, that is something that I do think could easily get corrected for them. Now, Isaac TeSlaa has been someone that has seen his draft stock rise because of a very good Senior Bowl. So has the draft stock of this next receiver as well, Kyle Williams. And this play right here was just some of the most fun film I think I watched just while watching all the sleepers here. Just gives you kind of everything that you want to see just out of a receiver just in general. Let's go ahead and just rewind this play. So first and foremost, he does snap the route off early because he's open, wants to get the first down, wants to get the ball to him. Tough to say if that's by design or whatnot, but obviously gets the ball in his hands early, and then he sees where he needs to get to, and obviously gets to that spot because the first down, and then he's just gone. You see that speed, and a nice way to measure a player's speed sometimes on the field, obviously we can all look at 40 times, is look at the defenders around him and see if he's separating from that player. We do see that there with Kyle Williams, and then he's just able to break this play and score a touchdown on that. That is just one of those eye-popping plays that you just love to see from a prospect, and that's the thing. He had a bunch of big plays like this throughout the whole season. When I was thinking about a good player comp, I think Jayden Reed is honestly just the ideal player comp for Kyle Williams. We see Jayden Reed make those same type of plays and just everything in between. Like Jayden Reed, someone that has been a pretty inconsistent player for the Packers. You see the upside there from him, which is obviously undeniable. But like Jayden Reed, Kyle Williams has a lot of drop issues. Okay. And so that's probably the biggest concern with Kyle Williams is that he does have a lot of drops. You could also use Curtis Samuel or even Marvin Mims as an easy kind of swap in there. I could see him end up getting used like Deebo Samuel as well. Overall, he's going to be a mid-round pick. Projections wise, again, just Jayden Reed 2.0 to me. Some potential teams would be teams where they need a player like that. Obviously, with Deebo Samuel gone, you could see San Francisco try to get to them. An interesting team is actually the Tennessee Titans. So Kyle Williams went to UNLV for the first 3 years of his college football career and then went to Washington State for the last 2 years. Okay, in one of those years, he actually ended up playing with Cam Ward as his quarterback, which is definitely interesting. And then the current offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, Nick Foles, was also the offensive coordinator for Kyle Williams in UNLV, which is certainly interesting to me there. So I do think Tennessee is going to be probably the most ideal landing spot. But it also wouldn't be surprising to see a team like Chicago, who likely is not bringing back Keenan Allen, maybe try to get to a player like Kyle Williams. So from there, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into his strengths. Kind of already mentioned them. Really like his release. His release is pretty elite. It's already top level, I would say. He is a pretty darn good route runner as well. He does tend to drift a little bit, not as much as Isaac TeSlaa, as I called out. Really love the yards after the catch. He is a versatile player. You see him make a bunch of plays out of the backfield, and just there's a lot of ways to get him involved. Got a lot of speed and quickness. Just love everything about him, except he does have some pretty big weaknesses. One, he was a little bit injury prone, but it's really just the drops, okay? And a lot of them are just mental errors, mental mistakes, where maybe he's just thinking about busting a big play too much. Tough to say for sure, but that is obviously a concern. And again, just like Jayden Reed, where it's like, why isn't this guy popping more than he is? And it just really depends on which scheme he ends up falling in, and does he get an opportunity to prove his talents. And a somewhat similar player would be Jaylin Lane, who is another receiver sleeper that I like. Now, he is going to be much more of a gadget and special teams player, especially at the start of his career. He's just a little bit undersized, and he does tend to play to that size. And when you watch the film on him, he is just someone that does continue to pop up on every single play. Obviously, it's a highlight film that I'm pulling up here, but just you see the explosiveness, you see the quick twitch, and you see the big playability from him. And if you see how he got used, he does remind me a lot of Zay Flowers, just how he gets used. A lot of mid-level targets and a lot of short targets where you're just trying to get the ball into an athlete's hands and let him go to work. And we see that happen with him a bunch. And so for me, that's actually one of my favorite player comps for him is actually going to be Zay Flowers. Now, do I expect him to be Zay Flowers? No, but I think you guys, if you go ahead and look at his highlight film, you would see kind of what I'm seeing. And especially with what I just showed you guys, I think you could see that. Now, he is someone that is going to be a late round pick, potentially could be an undrafted free agent. I doubt that. I do think we're going to see a lot of receivers go late in the draft. And I do think he gets drafted because he is pretty darn good at special teams. So you could be a punt returner, kick returner. You can use him that way. And you could use him as a gadget type player, but I also think he's going to be a mid-level route threat there as well. I could see maybe even Baltimore getting to him. I do think Philly is a good fit for him. Just trying to add some depth, trying to add a special teams player. New Orleans definitely needs to get younger receiver-wise, and then the Giants as well could try to get a little bit younger receiver-wise as well. But really, that late in the draft, it's really going to be anyone. So some of his strengths are going to be, first and foremost, it has been reported multiple times that he does have a good work ethic, always something that you want to see. He does have that good quickness and burst off the line of scrimmage, which to me is huge. If you can get a player that's going to be able to get the ball in his hands early, that is exactly what you want. If they can get open early, they're getting the ball. He also does have pretty darn good body control as a whole. He runs very fast. He's very quick. He was also a player that was a pretty high percentile ranked player athletic score-wise. You see that 40-yard dash time, 4.3540. Love that there from him. 3-cone drill and 20-yard shuttle, all top 5 in this year's class. So you like that there from him. And he's just going to be a good special teams player. Now, he does have some weaknesses. I've listed a lot of players that are a little bit undersized and all about the same kind of stature and weight, but he's the first player that does play to his size, so he doesn't play bigger than he is. So he's a little bit softer, if you will. He did have a little bit of an issue with some drops as well. Not too worried about that, 5 drops. Because of how he was used at Virginia Tech, he did have a limited route tree as well, and part of the issue with him as well for NFL purposes is a lot of his production was schemed open. A lot of it was getting him the ball early, and you can't exactly expect an NFL team to do that there with him, especially right off the bat for a younger player. And that's enough of the receivers. We're going to go ahead and get into 2 running backs, starting with the Rutgers or former Rutgers running back Kyle Monangai. And he's a player that when you watch his film, you would wonder, why the heck is he not a higher prospect? This guy is just pretty darn awesome on film. Every single play you see, he's just making big plays happen for that, relatively poor Rutgers team. And he is just someone that does display great vision, great patience, great power. And he was also one of the better blocking running backs in the league. When you watch his film, at least when I do, he reminds me a lot of one veteran running back, and I'm actually curious to see if any of you guys can guess the veteran running back that I'm thinking of. He had a long career, played for a couple of teams, and also was never elite, but also a very reliable and dependable running back. I'm actually curious if you guys are coming to the same player comp as I am, and I really just wanted you guys to watch a lot of the film some more, just because it is stellar film there for this guy. Just tough to break down. One of my favorite film watches was just him here. Just amazing stuff there. Anyways, the player comp that I was talking about was actually Frank Gore. I don't know if you guys came to that same conclusion as me. I typically like to do active players. I think Ray Davis is actually a pretty good comp for him as well. Last year's rookie running back that actually played pretty darn well for Buffalo. I really love that comp as well. We have to see kind of who Ray Davis is going to be as an NFL player still. But we do see about a 4 to 6 round, ADP for him. I think, proper NFL projections, probably going to be a practice squad / depth guy. Maybe in his first year does get to, if the opportunities present himself, maybe 300 yards rushing, maybe 100 yards. Again, if those opportunities are there for him, maybe Minnesota, maybe Indy are going to be good depth add spots for him. Minnesota has mentioned that they want to limit the touches for Aaron Jones. And so maybe he's someone that they add, and then Indy, just a good backup for Jonathan Taylor, somewhat of a similar player to Jonathan Taylor. And when you look at his strengths, guys, I think it's pretty obvious. Has great balance, great vision. He was a great blocker. PFF gave him like a 95 out of 100 blocking grade, which is obviously pretty good. Durable running back as well. And he's also had a lot of ball security. Now, I will say, the fact that he is a durable running back is also somewhat of a weakness, because he is an older running back that does have a lot of tread on his tires as well. And so you do worry about that. Obviously, running backs, you do kind of look at them the same way as pitchers with, pitch counts. You don't want them to have a lot of work on their legs as well. He did have a pretty bad raw athletic score as well. Pretty slow player. Okay, so he does have good quickness, good burst, but the top speed is just really not there. If you want another comp like Emmanuel Wilson, somewhat for the Green Bay Packers, just using my Packer hat, I think that's a similar one where Emmanuel Wilson, if he had top end speed, would be one of the best running backs in the league, but he doesn't, which is obviously a big thing, and so he's just another guy. I do think another weakness for Kyle is the fact that he does need to be somewhat of a volume running back. If you give him limited work, I don't know if we see him give us the same results that we had in college out of him. And he is like a small big back, so he's got obviously a lot of weight to him, being 211 pounds there, but he's a shorter back as well, so don't exactly love that aspect for him. And then the last running back and the last player of this video is going to be DJ Giddens, and this is a player that I think is an ideal, let's just put it this way, he's a San Francisco 49ers running back, and when you guys watch the film, you're going to see what I mean by that. It's to the point where I almost think that it's just a lot for the Niners to take him. They just love this type of back, this zone scheme type of back. And he's actually a player that does have a good raw athletic score. He's a player that you consistently see him just make the correct reads on the zone scheme plays. He's a bigger back. He has good patience, good balance as well, pretty good vision as well. But he's a player that, for the most part, when the plays are blocked for him, he's making it. He's a good enough receiver out of the backfield as well. Not great, but at least he's not a zero in that department as well. And yeah, I just think, honestly, any player comp for him would just be any San Francisco Niners recent running back like Elijah Mitchell, Isaac Guerrero. He's just that type of back, and I just really want to paint that type of picture. He is most likely going to be a late round pick, a 4th to 7th round pick. Tough to really gauge what the running back market is truly going to be. He likely will be a rotational back, but I do think if the opportunity presents itself, he could be a reliable RB1 for a team in a pinch. Again, kind of like we have seen the San Francisco 49ers have to go to. We saw Raheem Mostert have a very good season 2 years ago in the NFL in a similar scheme as well. could end up seeing something like that. I actually could see the LA Rams trying to get to him as well, maybe get to a little bit of a bigger back as opposed to some of the smaller backs that they have been attracted to recently. So some of his best strengths are going to be the fact that he's a great zone scheme fit. I do think a team could see that and be like, all right, we can apply his talents very well in our offense. He also does have great contact balance. He is a little bit tougher to take down because of that. He's not leaving his body open at all. Does have good vision and patience as well. Can catch the ball. You know, it's not exactly a strength of his, but also for a back like him, just kind of watching it is nice to see that he's at least not a zero in that department. And the biggest thing is that he had a very good raw athletic score, guys. Almost 9.8 out of 10 there. Now, he does have plenty of weaknesses as well for his size and speed for that matter. He does have limited power for, you know, a little bit of a bigger back as well. You'd like him to have a little bit more power there. His pass pro does need to be improved. And just in general, his ball security was an issue. Had 3 fumbles last year and did have a 12% drop rate as well. So a little bit sloppy with the ball. And then I will say his lack of like quick twitches, you know, just behind the line of scrimmage as well, was a little bit of a concern as well. He doesn't have that much wiggle. Again, he's just a prototypical zone scheme type of player. Now, that's going to do it for this video. I do appreciate you guys all being here. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'm trying to get out more content like this. So if you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give a like and subscribe. Do appreciate you guys being here. Good luck to you and your teams in this upcoming NFL draft. If you guys are watching this after the draft, hopefully the draft went your way. Always a fun time breaking down the best sleepers. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you being here. And as always, let's keep cashing.